sorry guys, good things take their time, but we're here. Thank you very much for having us today. We are super excited. No, we are among friends, and this setting is friendly enough to have a nice conversation about one topic I'm really passionate about. But first of all, let's introduce ourselves. Let me begin with myself. My name is Marisol Menendez. I'm Chief Open Innovation Officer for South Summit. And you know, we love open innovation at South Summit. By the way, after this session, we are having a radio open innovation program in the sandbox. We love open innovation. It's in our DNA. And because South Summit is by nature an ecosystem and a connector. So today we're talking about one of my favorite topics in the world, which is realities, results, and future collaboration through ecosystems. And to have this conversation, I have my friends Elena and Shahab. I practiced and practiced.
But you're doing it amazingly.
Yeah,
really.
I will try it again.
Really good.
And we will discuss about innovation, but you'll see why they are with me today. So let's begin with the introductions. Elena, tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. Really nice to be here. I'm leading the partnership team collaboration with third parties at Banco Sabadell. And what do we do? So we accelerate the digital transformation of the bank by being the nexus of collaborations between the bank and the business areas and then the third-party ecosystem. So more in detail, internally what we do is we understand the strategic plan of the bank and we look for opportunities on those third-party ecosystem. And also what we do at the same time is we are building a model that for the future and now to be able to collaborate in a large scale and do implementation faster. And then with the third party, that's also important that we are like the orchestrator that we were talking. What we do is we help them land the product or the service to the reality of the company, and also we help them to navigate the requirements that they could find when they are going to work with us. As for example, in banking, it's really important the law and the regulatory requirement, and most of the time it's difficult for them when they come to work with us. So since 2015 at Banco Sabadell, we have done more than 20 partnerships already, and for sure we are going to do more because we really think that is the future. I would like only to highlight two of them for you to see how different are the ones that we are doing. One of the last two ones that we have done this year is the partnership with the Swedish fintech, Mina Technologies, and what we have done is do a pilot with our clients to see the subscription management service that Mina is providing, how it's evolving and how it's doing with our clients. And at the same time, we can find also internal processes, and we have done a pilot also with the Spanish company Predictiva, and what we have done is we analyze the calls between the bank managers and the clients with cognitive models, and after that we see insights. So as you can see at the end, what we are trying to do is to see what value added we can see collaborating with third parties.
That's interesting, no? And you know, here there are some interesting elements that we will use afterwards about the different actors in the ecosystem and about regulation, and coming from also a regulated industry somehow, no? We have Shahab. Please, introduce yourself.
The most important thing I can say about myself that I have two daughters, Amit and Karni, and I'm married to Naama. And these are probably the biggest achievements I've had in my life so far. And everything else is like in the background. What I do in the background is I've been specializing in innovation management for the past 10 years or so, and I've worked in several industries. My first industry was banking. The first organization that I worked with was a bank.
We all come from banking. We have that as well. Mm-hmm.
And today I work as the Director of Internal Innovation for Clalit Health Services, which is basically the biggest provider of health services in Israel, catering more than 4.5 million patients, wow. And that is more than half of Israel's population. So it's a very massive organization. And my role in Clalit is to make sure that Clalit knows how to create innovation from within, not just bring it from outside ready-made. So there's a lot of thought in working with entrepreneurs, working to design the right budgets, the right programs, the right processes to enable us to create innovation with patients, with doctors, and of course a lot with collaboration with our partners from the ecosystem.
You see, this is interesting because the actors change in each of the industries, of course, but it's also interesting that you come from the banking sector. I also come from the banking sector. I learned to do ecosystems there in BBVA. And you know, for so long, I've been kind of obsessed with ecosystems. Ecosystems are a network of people, and we have behind that people and how we create the interactions and the connections, but how do we create real value for the organization? And well, if we are talking from the point of view of big corporations that, of course, need to have a result of how we are interacting with others through innovation, there are many things to say. And nowadays, ecosystems, I think, have been long around, ecosystems in the context of innovation, as a tool that helps us to solve this vulnerability, unstable, unpredictable, brittle world that we live in, that can help us to solve the real challenges, but also how we can bring in value and keep these long-lasting relationships. So let's begin with a question to open the door to the interesting discussion that we have here. So how, if we're talking about innovation, we are talking about health, we are talking about bankings, what's the specific role of ecosystems in creating this new value and the innovation? What would you say, Shahab?
Well, I think that from my experience in ecosystems, at least in Israel, it seems like there's a lot of connections being made, and most of them are transactional. Meaning, I'm trying to sell you something, you should buy something from me. Even if you're a design partner, there's still a transactional relationship. There's something that I want to sell, and there's something that you want to buy. And I think that it's awesome, I think it's amazing, but I think that the next level of creating an effective ecosystem is co-creation. And what I've seen in Clalit, I had this opportunity to create a program where we chose challenges, and the challenges came from the field, from doctors, from physicians, and to each challenge we created a holistic team. It had physicians there, it had product managers, program managers, service design experts, and of course patients, which sometimes just are being overlooked when it comes to co-creation, and partners from our ecosystem. And the amazing thing was that the program managed to create with our partners from the ecosystem new solutions that, you know, eventually when the program ended and we had these concepts and we were trying to build them, we said, why don't we find it in the ecosystem? Maybe we can buy parts of them and collaborate and collect them into one holistic solution, and we couldn't find it. There was something about this co-creation process that enabled us to create something very unique that was new to everything that we could have found in the Israeli ecosystem. And for me, it was very powerful. It kind of proved to me that, you know, in the intersections between people and organizations, there is a potential to create something that is new, and in an ecosystem that has hundreds of startups, creating something new is not trivial. So
there's this quote I always like to say, and maybe some people are like, shut up, Marisol, because you always say it, but it's what, when I realized, this is what I'm working. Thomas Malone supposedly said, that most of the most important future innovations will not come from new technologies, but from new ways of collaboration. No? And now you're talking about that at the same time, because you say, customers and the patients are being not being included enough, no? How can we create these channels to make this collaboration? And also, in a conference that I was about ecosystems recently, they were talking about that many times even the solution exists outside your organization, and it's just a matter of bringing it together, no? Which is something that you also live day and day in Sabadell, no?
Yeah, I was going to think that the roles and also the stakeholders of the ecosystem are changing all the time. And maybe not the stakeholders, and I mean, like the public institutions, the corporate, the startups, but how they are working together. Because if you remember, like, I don't know, 10 years ago, we were thinking that banks and corporations, corporation and startup, we couldn't work together, and more fintech. It was like impossible. We were saying that it was a fighting of both for the same clients. Then it started to change, and we saw that they were more open into investment to do partnership, and that's how it started the collaboration between this corporation, more the banks and the startup. But then we realized that we were not fighting for the same clients. We were like, we wanted to give them more value, and we could collaborate together because sometimes the core of the business we were doing was not the same as the other. So in the collaboration at the end, what we were doing is to give a value added to that customer. And then we have realized that, and I think now we are in the best moment of this, and it's going to improve more and more in the future, and I'm really happy about that because as we said, I think the combination of both is magic because it's like the best of the both ecosystems, so at the end it's changing. And also there's one thing in banking, and it's important for us, for example, is all that about the sandbox and the Spanish sandbox that this year have started, because also the public institution is going into that and is helping us in the Spanish market to go in faster and to do things that sometimes it take a lot of risk, and with this sandbox we are able to do those things.
Can I ask a question? Elena? So I like the fact that you can create on a common ground between corporates and startups when it comes to the essence, right? We want to create the same value, we bring in different values, and that's intuitive. What I'm struggling with is connecting the different DNAs. And these are organizations that have so different tempos. So even if we say we want to build the same thing together, and we are all in agreement that this is what we want to build, working together continuously, this is a huge challenge for us. How do you tackle that?
Yeah, for sure it's huge, and that's why I'm there in the partnership team. I hope to solve and help the corporate and the startup to do that. But for sure, the reality is that it's really different ecosystem, and that's why there has to be like a team, I think, that has to help both sides to understand what they want to do and what they have to do. And here I want to say one thing that is important for me, and it's like to know why you are doing that collaboration. Because sometimes, as in our daily lives, you take the inertia and you hear the market, you hear the other competitors, and you say, I want that also. But why you want that really is aligned with the strategy of the company and what the business areas and the corporate wants. And from that, also, the startup has to know, and the third party has to realize if really the corporate is the one that they want to collaborate with. Because for sure now they have a lot of corporates, but it's the one that for them is going to be the right one. And from then you will have the shared vision and a shared project, and that is going to be a win-win project for both at that time.
I like that reflection, and it's interesting because I think that we all struggle, and many of you who work in innovation with others, by being in the middle, we are somehow translating, that different worlds. You are a small startup, for example, in this example, and you are fast, and you want results, and you are living year by year, and you need the money, and you need the cash flow. And you are a corporation, you are big, you are like an elephant and whatever. So who can create this role of translating both worlds? And recently I've been looking a lot into this, and I like the idea that now there's this role that organizations can integrate and officialize, which is ecosystems orchestrators. These translators, people who can talk to everyone. Do you have something like that in your own organization?
I'm sorry to say, I think that many times it's me.
Yes, no,
Yes,
yes.
and it connects back to something that you mentioned backstage about working with people. I think I think it's easier to translate people than to translate organizations. And I think that this is one of the places that we fall, because I've talked to so many people, and they tell me, someone at Clalit has to make a decision. What Clalit is doing is yada yada yada, and I always tell them, have you ever met Clalit? Clalit doesn't really exist. There's no Clalit. There's you, there's me, there's him, and when you start talking to people in order to create these relationships, it's easier. It's easier because Clalit is always to blame. It's this higher power. It's not responsible for everything. Even it's not responsible. I'm not responsible for what I'm doing. It's Clalit. Right? It's not me. And when you start connecting people, I think it's easier to build these bridges.
Yeah, we were talking about, and this is also interesting, like the different layers that are behind this connection, no? We are connecting at a human level with each individual's priorities, worries, needs, fears, desires, but then also what's your job, and then what's your organization looking for related to these KPIs that you were talking. I even think sometimes we say that we should think about the individual KPIs and the organization KPIs, maybe even the unit KPIs, no? Because, for example, if you are talking to the procurement department, you're a startup and trying to sell, this procurement department has an objective, maybe it's have savings or maybe find the best vendor, but the guy from the business unit has a different set of KPIs. And even personally, maybe he is growing in his role and he needs to show results, no? So this human dynamic is really interesting.
Yeah, I think we are evolving a lot in that way, and it's also related to the South Summit this year about sustainability. I think that all the companies before, we were really focused on the economical perspective, and we were not linking all the things about also the environment, but also the people, no? Because sometimes when you give to the people the way to feel that it's not only in the professional way, but also in the personal, and they share the passion of what they do also related to what they do in their lives and in their job, is when you arrive to the best moment, and also it could be faster for your company to arrive to those objectives. So that's, as you were saying, I think it's important, and we are also in the moment that we are realizing it and giving more power to those things.
So I have one question, because also I think collaboration is as old as humanity, no? I think humanity, and yeah, even when we began chasing bisons or whatever and in the prehistory, the collaboration is what created a difference. And we can read that in Yuval Harari's book, Sapiens, no? About this evolution, every big step was with collaboration. Why are ecosystems and open innovations different now than any other achievement in humanity? I have my own idea, but there are things that are unique about the times that we are living. You're in the health industry, no? Of course, we've been living this super huge health issue. You're in the banking, which also the crisis. What do banking and health and ecosystems have in common? What is the thing about ecosystems?
Wow. First of all, I think that what became different is since the bisons, it became much more complex. There are so many rules and so many definitions. We started by, all of us just throwing the spear at the animal, and now, no, Elena, this is my part of the animal. You can throw a spear there. Then no, this is heavily regulated. You have to throw the spear over there. You have to get an approval to own a spear, and it has to be FDA approved, and so on. I think it became much more complex. The world became much more complex between different entities trying to make sense out of all these things. And I think that what
complexity, no?
Yes. I think that what my biggest challenge is trying to filter this complexity into human relationships. And once you're done with that, you're golden. It's easy. When two people on the same side trying to work together, you can do it. But there's all this complexity that you can't solve just through relationship. You have to. right
well,
there.
I was going to say the same. I think that the complexity we have arrived, and we see in technology, it's going so fast because the technology sometimes is going faster than the reality that we can manage in our daily day. And we have seen that with the kids and with the more younger people. So that's why it's important that we work together, because if you don't alone, I mean, it's going so fast that it's impossible to put the ethics and the results you want. And when you mix it with the others, I mean, there are more brains, and at the end, it's easier to arrive to what you want to do, no? So that's why I think also we have arrived now to a moment of collaboration, because it's the way so fast that we want to do it like faster, but also in a good way, no? And that's why I think
Yeah,
it's
that's interesting. I think we talked about complexity and speed. And of course, with technology, we also have a more numerous amount of connections at the same time, which also adds to the complexity and the speed, of course. That's why we come back to this orchestrator role, to someone who helps to see all the different fronts that we have open and to measure each KPI and to see that everyone is getting their own objective, no? And I also like the idea that this collaboration is aiming to solve these grand challenges that we have as society. The definition of grand challenge that recently I learned that there's a formal academic definition of grand challenge, also called the wicked problems, which are problems that seem to be unsolvable, no? Like the pandemic, or like sustainability, that are so critical problems for us. And collaboration is the only solution to that, no? So I think there's a sense of urgency in working through ecosystems. And so maybe we can use our last 5 minutes. I would like to ask you for a main call to action, a final thought, and maybe a reflection on what do health industry and banking industry have in common? How can we merge and create this collaboration? What would be the final call to action about ecosystems?
I think what we have in common is that for sure we have realized now that the collaboration is the future, no? And that's important, and it's important to know all the stakeholders that take place in these two sectors and know how they have to help to work together. And I think from there are several differences that we can see. Maybe in the health and in the banking, we have a lot of regulatory issues, and that's why we are more in common than others. And for me, also an advice that I will give to anyone that wants to collaborate more, to the startups and the fintech that could be here and they want to collaborate with us, also in the health, on the bank, for me is to know for sure why you want to collaborate with the other, why you have a shared vision with the other, as I mentioned before, because for me it's the important thing. And from there start working, what are you going to propose, and see how the requirements that you are going to find after, the challenges of the regulatory and more the law perspective, how you are going to solve them. And from there you will have something already done. And it's also an advice I would like to give to anyone that want to collaborate, because it's so important that maybe you don't have to knock every door, but you have to knock the door that it's really going to be
The right door.
The main door.
So you mentioned wicked problems, and this is a theme that we talk a lot about when it comes to design thinking and creating like a human-centered approach to problem solving. And so, and the assumption is that when you have a problem that you can't really solve, it's because there's a missing ingredient, and the missing ingredient is mostly human. And in order to understand that, you have to have empathy. So if I have to choose a call for action, is for us to be more empathic to other people. And by that, I don't mean just to feel their pain and so on, but to really experience what they're experiencing from a business point of view, from a personal point of view, from a strategic point of view. And I think that once we have this holistic approach, a more empathic approach to people, it's much easier to collaborate. It's almost impossible not to. I think this is what connects all industries.
Yeah, and I would like to add to that it's so important like to work as a single team, because sometimes you are like trying to collaborate, but everyone is working, each team by their way, and the important thing is to feel that you are a unique team and to feel that at the end you are working as if it will be a team in your corporate or in your company. And that's important because I think the collaboration before was more about doing things, have objectives, but maybe not the same team. And now we are realizing that it's one team like that could arrive to that point.
Single unit. I was thinking about the trust that we were talking about, and I dedicate a lot of time thinking about this, and I realized, like, this is like a human body. I use this similarity that maybe at the first you need to have clear the why you are doing the collaboration, what you want to get from that, and I think that as the brain of the thing, no? Then, but also the heart, which is the desire of innovation, brings another dimension of that why. So you need to create a balance between the brain and the heart of the thing. But later on, realize that the rest of the body of the organization needs to be ready to do that. So if you're asking the organization to collaborate, do you have your procurement? Do you have your budget process? Do the business people are ready to do that? Do they allow even the startup in? Do they have the possibility to access the organization? And with that, you align the body and you are able to put the right kind of measures, the KPIs, to see that it's working. Once you know what your head and heart desire, and if your body is aligned to that, it's like knowing, okay, I like tall guys that are strong and I want to marry. No, you have like the profile more or less of things that you want to do, and you're able now to look to others and tell them, hey, I want to marry, or I want just to party and to get to know people, and I want to learn, no? And then that creates the right mood for relationships, which are the ecosystem collaborations. And that creates trust at the end that you were talking about, and that helps us to explore other things. And another reflection that I had is that this involves lots of human values like listening, empathy, trust that you were talking about. I have a very wise friend that says that we need to do what nature gave us, and we have 2 eyes and 2 ears, but only 1 mouth, and listen more than we talk. No? And listen to the customer, listen to the teams. One last word that you want to say. What do ecosystems mean for our future? What do you say?
I was going to say only one word, that is collaboration. For sure, what I'm saying is that the ecosystem, I think, and all the stakeholders are going to collaborate for the future, because as the way is going so fast, we need that, and also for an ethic and not only for a profit way.
So co-creation is one. Is that okay? Is it one?
We love it.
So I would say co-creation. I think that there's something about ecosystem that enables us to create new value propositions that are new to the world and new to us just by working together. I think this is awesome.
So this is it, about collaboration. Who's ready to collaborate, to go in this big ecosystem that is South Summit? Let's open the door for the future. Innovation is business, you know? Thank you very much, guys. And shall we take a selfie?
Thank you. Sure.
And thank you very much, everyone, for having us. And we're happy to connect. Let's take a selfie here.